Welcome back to Good Morning Sri Lanka. You are with me, Anupama, and we have Dr. T in the house. Who is not a rapper, who is officially a doctor, but who has some other qualifications.
Speaking of rapping,
oh yes,
yeah, actually one of my poems was made into a hip-hop song.
Are you serious? So you are officially the Dr. D.
I didn't sing it though.
Alright.
It's called Spiritual Warriors,
okay.
And you know, the viewers can just check it out. They can find it online.
It's online.
Yeah,
okay.
It's called Spiritual Warriors, and it is available online.
Okay, so talking about songs, a very interesting question that I have to ask you next is because now we've been talking about your writing, right? And you also mentioned that many of your writings, very fortunately, are publications now available, newspapers, magazines, and there are different articles that you wrote and songs that people go and rap. Which is really, really interesting. I just got to know that instantly. So tell us about that. How do you start writing? Have you had any previous training on writing?
Well, actually no. How I became a writer is quite interesting because it all started off by just having a diary. You know, we all have diaries and we just maintain journals.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned before, I did have a lot of challenges in Pakistan. So it's not easy to always, you know, call up your parents and keep complaining, especially when it's international.
Yeah.
So what happened is after a while I began pouring out my feelings, you know.
Dear diary, bad day. I know how it feels.
Yeah. So after a while what happened, I continued this, and around the 4th year they were having an international magazine that was exclusively for the foreigners of the uni. And around that time somehow it didn't occur to me that I need to get a publication or whatever. And it was my roommate at that time. She's a Kashmiri, she's Lubna. So she was like, hey, you should totally, you know, do something about this and you should think about publishing it. And I didn't take it very seriously. And until the last minute of the deadline, I had no plans to make it happen. And the rest is history. That was the first time that I got published. And
nice.
After I came back to Sri Lanka, it was my brother who suggested that I should open a blog. And the blog is called Chosen Odyssey, and it has most of my writings, and I continued writing, and then I actually went into medical journalism for a while, and I used to contribute articles to the Sunday Observer and so forth, and then I got into travel writing.
Nice.
And I've also done different genres like architecture, business, motivational, and stuff that are related to health as well.
Okay, so let's talk about Chosen Odyssey. I mean, the name itself intrigues me. How did you choose that name?
Well, like I said, the first article that I published in Pakistan, that was called Chosen Odyssey. And it is published even in the Sunday Observer. So it's actually a nutshell of my journey.
Right.
It seemed like I didn't ask for this, considering how tough it was.
Yeah.
But eventually, life is all about a series of choices. And your journey or your odyssey is your choice to make. So it stuck somehow, and the blog was also the same name as the first article that I had published.
And that's something very interesting that you said, because I've heard this very a wonderful phrase that says, life is what happens when you're not planning things. The unplanned things that happen around us are actually life.
Yes, so because unplanned is when the interesting experiences come to you. And it's a collection of your experiences.
So I'm sure Pakistan changed you a lot.
It did.
Yeah.
I would call it my metamorphosis.
Really? Okay, so tell us a bit about Dina, who was before, and Dina, who is now.
Wow, you should ask my high school friends.
No, just tell us now.
Well, it's like, before I went, I was very focused in academics because I was under a lot of pressure that I had imposed on myself to get those high grades, because to be frank, I had the fear, like, okay, if I don't get good grades, I'm probably not going to be able to become a doctor at that time. That was my only goal as a teenager. So I focused completely on academics, and I didn't really have a balance. Didn't have a social life, didn't make time for play, didn't make time for fun or anything. So I did become a nerd at some point. But when I went to Pakistan, that really changed, because I would say now, fortunately I went to a girls' uni.
Okay.
Yes. At one point it would be like, okay, no.
Why is it fortunate that you went to a girls' uni? Well, people are wondering out there, okay, she's a boring type. I'm sure she's not. So please excuse yourself from it and tell us why is it fortunate.
Well, I say fortunately because if you take Pakistan, being a little bit of a conservative country in certain ways, if you are in a normal co-ed uni, the girls don't have equal opportunities as the guys.
Ah, right.
When it comes to sports, when it comes to drama, I mean, there would be people who take part, but it's not 50-50.
So they're obviously submissive when it comes to the opposite gender.
Yes, and in certain cases, there isn't, you know, that same level of freedom. Right. But being in a girls' uni, it's all you.
Yeah, you get to do everything.
You get to do everything. So from soccer to debating to basketball to drama to you name it.
Wow.
So I would say
you did them all?
Sorry?
You did them all?
Yes.
You played soccer?
I was in the team.
That's so cool.
I was in the team, yeah. So then what happened was that I would say that's where the extrovert in me came out. Before that I was the nerd and the bookworm, and then somehow I was able to get that balance.
Right.
In Pakistan. So I'm really grateful for that, because even though in the midst of all those challenges it seemed like a lot was really, you know, making life seem really hard, in the process of that all it was happening, like a different process was going on to bring out the extrovert in me.
Yeah.
So that was the balance of the two sides of the brain, I guess.
So basically what you're saying is people who have been known you before might look at you now and see a huge difference.
Yes, they do.
Nice.
They do.
Nice. It's a pleasant difference, I'm sure.
Let's hope so.
But yeah, I'm sure your friends will agree with it. Now something came up in your answer for my previous question, is that you went into football, drama, theatre, debating. You were mentioning something before the show began, that you won debating competitions and many speech competitions, I guess, and that made you actually step into the motivational speeches and the motivational coaching thing. So how did you get into that? Now you're more known as a 4D motivational coach, right? More than just a medical doctor. So how was the transformation from being a doctor to that happen?
Well, to start off, I didn't frankly have any kind of public speaking training. You know, like a lot of the youth today are very fortunate that they have Toastmasters clubs, where they can, you know, get that forum where they can go through the mill. But in my case, I think I learned it the hard way, in the sense when I got to Pakistan, somehow I started to host the academic events and the symposiums and the workshops.
That's nice,
So eventually it kind of became a routine where I was expected to, you know, host pretty much most of them. So I didn't even realize what was going on, because it seemed as though life was preparing me to be a speaker. So over the 5 years I was going through a different kind of mill, a different kind of training. Although it did seem pretty, you know, like it was camouflaged in the midst of everything that was happening. But as to how I became a speaker and the 4D, again, it was an epiphany in, okay, a lot of people are going to find this funny, but it was in the psychiatry ward.
Are you serious? Okay.
I was seated in the psychiatry OPD, and I was very fond of psychiatry, because that was one department that fascinated me. It's one thing to learn about the human body and the organs and the pathology, the disease and all of these things, but when it comes to the human mind, you don't really get to see it. It's not tangible, but it's so fascinating. So right from the beginning, I was very fascinated in psychiatry, and it got to an extent where I used to try to even bunk classes of the other subjects.
Okay, interesting.
So I could, you know, like spend more time in the department. So I was seated in the OPD, and the patients were walking in and out, and what happened was that I began to recognize some of the patients. Because when you spend more time in an OPD, of course, they're coming for their routine checkups. And then I started asking myself the question, what's going to happen to them when they go home? Because most of them who come with depression, anxiety, stress are there not because something's physically wrong with them, but because they are mentally and emotionally not healthy. It's because of their lifestyle, it's because of their domestic situation, and so forth. So if you would take the mainstream medicine, right, doctors do a really good job in taking the patients who are, say, at a negative level to a normal level of, say, let's call that 0. So if doctors take you from negative to normal, and this is where the general public is, the normal public, right? So my question is, who's going to take them from this normal level to a higher level? Because what happened is that around 4th year, I began to realize most people are not really living life to the fullest. And that led me to starting a research at that point, because I realized that even if you take the medical students, we all know how much they work hard to get into med school. And millions are dreaming of becoming doctors and don't succeed. But those who don't make it don't know what's happening on the other side to the ones who do make it.
Okay.
So when I looked around me, most of the medical students were not really passionate about what they were doing.
Okay.
And this led me to a research where I conducted a series of questionnaires. I gave out questionnaires to people of different walks of life.
All right.
You have the patients who are the middle class, the upper class, and then the tribes.
Right.
Now, in Sindh,
Yeah.
you have the tribes who are like the Pakistani version of the Vaddas.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
They're illiterate, they have never been to school, of course. So I even communicated with them. And then I asked the questions from the medical students who came from over 30 different countries. And I also took it on to the professors.
Wow.
And whenever I came to Sri Lanka for my holidays, I also extended it to my family and friends over here.
Yeah.
And I asked simple questions like, okay, how are you? How's life? And most people are like, oh, you know, it's going on, so-so, and so forth. But
Not bad.
Not bad, you know, same old, same
Which is
old.
very average, I think, in Sri Lanka, and I'm sure that even in Pakistan it's the same. Yeah.
Yes. But what I found really interesting was I got really different answers from the most unbelievable people. For example, the poor fruit seller's son. He would just love to do what he's doing.
Okay.
And he used to wait every morning to just say good morning to me.
Wow.
You know, like in Urdu you say Baji for Aki or elder sister. So he'd be like, good morning Baji. And he's like so happy. And the lady who was sweeping the dorms, she dresses up. She's all groomed up.
Wow.
You know, and she's singing all Hindi songs.
Interesting.
And she just loves what she does.
Okay.
So this actually really confused me because here we have the rich people who seem to have it all, the professors and the people who seem privileged, and they seem to not have a great life when you really ask them.
They don't seem to enjoy life.
They don't seem to enjoy it.
Whereas people who don't have much,
yes,
they can do
materialistically,
that.
are happy and content. And that led me to the research, which took a whole different level when I came back to Sri Lanka, because I took this research online. And that was a whole different horizon altogether.
Of course, yeah.
Because I questioned people from different countries, different ages, background, ethnicities, and religious beliefs, and so forth. And they range from the ages of 12 to 85. That was the range.
That's
of
a
the
huge
age.
range.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you dealt with all sort of people from all sort of age groups and ethnicities and communities, and you came up with what conclusion?
With the conclusion that most people are not living fulfilled lives.
All right.
Because they are not living a life of passion.
A life of passion.
A life of passion.
Okay.
Which brings us to the 4D. Now, to understand the 4D, you and the viewers listening and watching have to first understand what is the 3D.
Alright, so now let's talk about 4D after a very short commercial break, because I'm sure the audience needs to know an elaborated, detailed picture on what 4D is all about. I was fortunate to get to know that, but I'm sure the viewers have not known about it so far, unless you have read about it somewhere. So let's go into this very short commercial break, and I'll be right back.